Hello everyone. If your objective is to learn Python using PyCharm Python editor or IDE along with Conda based Python runtime or Python interpreter or Python runtime environment and using Flask based web application, then you are at the right place. In this tutorial, I will be using PyCharm with Conda based Python environment, and then I will be creating a static website so using index.html and combining it with Flask based Python modules, and everything will run in a Conda based Python environment through PyCharm IDE. So let's get started. So very first thing, you need to have PyCharm downloaded. So please download the PyCharm. Next, you have to have the Conda installed in your machine. So please download the latest version of Conda. After that, you make sure that you do have Conda working in your machine. Here, I have command line open. I will check Conda application I do have installed and it's running. I can check where Conda is installed. So where Conda, and here you could see that path for Conda is here. So at least we know where the Conda is and we made sure Conda is running. The next step is to start the PyCharm. Here you can see that PyCharm is started. Now we are going to create a new project. We are creating a new project and we will call it demo project, and we are going to set up the Python interpreter for this project by selecting the Conda here. And as you could see here that this project environment will be created within the Conda, and here you could see that Conda executable is coming out from the path which we have already verified. Here you could see that Conda path is exactly the same where the Conda is installed on my machine. Here you could see that Conda path is used from the exact same place where our Conda binaries are. Let's go ahead and create our project. Here you can see the project is being created. And if you read those messages, you will see that Conda environment was being created for us. And here you could see at the very bottom right side, Python 3.8 demo project is setting up with the Python 3.8 Conda based environment. Here is our project. Here we could see that Python 3.8 is used. We could launch the Python console, and here you could see that it's a Python 3 console here. And just to verify that it was the version we have, we can use the terminal and we can check with Python command, Python, and here we will see that Python 3.8.12 is our environment version. And that's how you are going to set up your PyCharm with Conda to a desired Python interpreter or Python runtime environment for your project. Next step is to set up the runtime configuration for our code. To start with, we will create a Python code file called a.app.py, and here we will try to write a very first line. Welcome everyone. Okay, now we want to run this code, and in order to run this code we need a runtime environment. So we do have a Python 3.8 environment, but we really need to connect that with our code, and for that we need to set up the configuration. So here you could see that we have add configuration. Here we are going to select a Python environment and we will call it project 3.8. So it just tells us that it's a Python 3.8 project. You could choose any name you would want here. Next, script paths. It means where the script is going to be loaded. So here you could see we have app.py here. So we will select app.py here. Next, we have already selected the Python 3.8 demo project runtime, which we have already created earlier while creating the project. The working directory is already being used based on this script selection. Everything is almost set here, and we are going to apply it, and okay. At this point, our runtime is set. Our code, at least hello world or welcome message, is being written, and now we'll run this thing. Here you could see we have run, the message is printed, or if we want to debug it, we could do debug, and here you could see that welcome everyone is written. If we want to set up the breakpoint, we can set up the breakpoint. We have debugger running, and here you could see that our debugger is started, and we could run again here, and here that message is written. So that's how you are going to use your Python interpreter or the runtime environment connected with your PyCharm, and you will start the Python development. It's a very first step you are going to do it. In the next step, we are going to use Flask module or Python Flask module to create a web application within this project. We need to make sure that if our current runtime Python environment has all these Flask related modules or not. To check that, we will select the PyCharm preference, and here you will see that for this project, that is our interpreter. Here is the interpreter. Here you could see these are the packages installed for this environment, and we do not see anything related with Flask here. So we will try to search for Flask. Here you could see Flask is there. We will install the Flask. Once installation is completed, we will look into and try to install the Flask RESTful. Here you could see that it's trying to install the Flask runtime 3.0.3.9. Let's install it, this one too. And we will also install the Flask compress. Okay, so these three different Python Flask packages, Flask, Flask compress, and Flask RESTful, are installed. These packages are installed here. Now you would see that we have these packages installed, and they are in required dependency. At this point, all the Flask related packages are installed. So let's start the terminal. Type for pip. So we do have pip command. We will look into the pip list. Here is the list of all the packages with this environment, and we will try to say, can we get all the Flask related packages? And here you could see that our packages are uppercase Flask. So we have Flask, we have Flask compress, and we have Flask RESTful. And here you will see that the packages version numbers are also associated with that. It means we do have Flask here. Now we will change our app.py code to integrate Flask, a specific code. Here I have very quickly copied some code. Very first thing, first three lines, I am using the Flask related modules and importing certain functions from that. Next, I am defining that they define an application which is based on Flask, and the static folder means from where these index.html or all these JavaScript and style sheet files will be loaded. So I suggested that they will be loading from this folder, compressing the app, setting up the API, and finally setting the secret. And next, setting the root, which is the /vac means slash everything from there, and then the index.html will be loaded from there. To match this code, what we really need to do is that we need to complete this requirement. So we will come into the demo project, create folder called templates. Here you could see template. We also need to create the file called index.html, index.html. So we have index.html here based on requirement. We also need a static folder, so we will create a static folder in templates. So here let's create, and so this requirement is met right now. So this requirement is really met here. We still need to write code inside index.html. Next, we are just defining that, okay, main is here, and when execution will come at this point, we will select this app, which is defined like this way, and we will run that app on a local host, which is like a 0.0.0.0, and the port 8000. And this code is really going to execute our index. It is going to start a Python web application and going to launch the index.html within that web application. So we will come back to index.html and complete this code. So we really need to start with HTML, and then we also need head, title, and we can say hello world, and after that we need body, and here body we will say h1. Welcome everyone. Very simple HTML file we have here. Okay, and after that app here. So that's pretty much it is. So now we are going to use the Flask packages and going to start a Python based web application. Let's start debugger, and here you will see that we hit some problem. Let's stop it. Let's try to run and see what is really happening here. And here you would see that there is an error. It's a import error, cannot import name endpoint from view functions. There is some error came, and here you will see that it's trying to use the Python 3.8 and then it's using the Flask package. So what is the problem here? And it's a known issue related with Flask RESTful 0.3.8. So in order to solve this problem, what we really need is that we need to update Flask RESTful to 3.0.3.9. So in order to upgrade it, we can here upgrade directly that package from here. Use the exact. Here you would see that 3.h is removed and 3.9 is being installed. Just to validate it one more time, here you would see that we have 3.9. Okay, next we will go back and we will start everything back to where we started. Okay, so here you would see, let's clean this, all of this, we don't really need it. Let's debug it, and here you would see everything is started. Depending on this app.run localhost and port 8000, if we try to open this, we will be able to see that our index.html welcome everyone should be visible. Open localhost 8000, and this is exactly welcome everyone with the hello world is rendered. So this is how you are going to use Flask based web application directly through PyCharm with a Conda Python 3.8 base environment. At this time, we can learn one more thing very quickly. Here you could see that our port is 8000, and if you want to change this port by any reason, you have to rechange this code. And if you want to make it dynamic, it means that when this application runs, it actually reads an environment variable to see what our port number should be, and that port will be used during runtime to run this web application. So how we will do that? It means what we want is that we want to use a dynamic. So we can say is port number, and that port number is going to come from an environment variable. So we will define our environment file. So we have .env, and we can say the port number is here is 8005. Okay, so that's our port number we have defined here. And now in the app.py, we want to use that port number. So how we could do it? For to use this, we really need to make sure that do we have a package which we could use to read this port number directly from environment variable. And for that, we will check a package. So we need a package called python .env. And if we look into here, we can say dot, and we do not see any python.env packages here. So what we need is that we need to install it. We will come back here, look into preferences, select our environment. here you could see we will search for .env, and there is a r-.env, but we do not have the package called python-.env. We need to install this package. So there are one option we have, that we can try to set up the repository where we can find that package, one option, or the simplest method is that we can actually directly install from here. So at this point we can come here and we can say pip install python.env, and what it's going to do is that it will install the python.env package. Here you could see that is installed. If we try to validate that do we have a .env package, yep, we do have python.env package installed. It means that now we can use this module and import it in our code, and once we have imported it, then we can use a different function to read the environment variable from here. We can say here from .env import load.env. So we have imported that. Next, what we really need is that we need to also import OS. So we have also imported the OS module. Now what we need is that we need to say that os.get environment. So here is the os.get environment, and we are saying, can you read the port number from the environment? To make sure we can read our environment variable, we will use this method and we will load it just before start. So this method will go ahead and read the .env file, and it will hold the port number variable, and that port number variable will be used as a port number to start. So here you could see that we have port set as a 8005. At this point we will go ahead and we will launch our web server. So let's run it. We will first run it here. Here you could see that 8005 is used as a port number to run this web server. Let's open the web browser. Here in the web browser, let's select 8005, and here you could see that that is our 8005. Here index.html, we can say at port 8005. We can save it. Let's go back to web browser, and here is, so here that's how you are going to run your Python Flask based web application using Conda runtime environment. Let's recap. We started Python development using PyCharm IDE. We created a Conda based Python environment using Python version 3.8. After that, we verified that our environment is ready and working. After, we decided to install Python Flask packages so that we could create a web application using Flask. We used Python Flask packages to create a static website. We used index.html as a static content to be loaded using Python Flask packages, and finally using PyCharm IDE we were able to create a Python based application using a static website. That's all, my friends. If you have enjoyed our content, please like it, share it, subscribe it. And finally, please remember, be good and do good. Thank you.